Theophilus Dorrington. Theophilus Dorrington 1654–1715 was a Church of England clergyman. Initially a nonconforming minister, he settled at Wittersham in the Weald, an area with many Dissenters, particularly Baptists. He became a controversialist attacking nonconformity. He also warned that the Grand Tour could create Catholic converts by aesthetic impressions. Life. The son of nonconformist parents, Dorrington was educated for the ministry. In 1678 he ran with three other young nonconformist ministers, Thomas Goodwin. On 13 June 1680 he entered himself as a medical student at Leiden University. John Williams, the Bishop of Chichester, encouraged Dorrington to be ordained in the Church of England. In 1698 he travelled in Holland and Germany, and in 1699 published an account of his journeys. In November 1698 he was presented by Archbishop Thomas Tennyson to the rectory of Wittersham in Kent. He was awarded a Master of Arts degree at Magdalen College, Oxford on 9 March 1710. Dorrington died on 30 April 1715 at Wittersham. Works. Dorrington was a prolific author and controversialist. His publications included The Right Use of an Estate, a Sermon on 1 Cor, Romans 7:31, London 1683. Reformed Devotions, London 1687, 4th edition, reviewed, London 1696, 6th edition, London 1704, 9th edition, London 1727. These were based on the writings of the Catholic layman John Austin. It contained versions of medieval hymns, among others Laudes Sion, Vexilla Regis, and Veni Sancte Spiritus. Mark Noble wrongly ascribed to Dorrington the authorship of Devotions in the Ancient Way of Offices. Reformed by a person of quality and published by George Hicks, D.D. London, 1701. Another derivative work from Austin. It was by Susanna Hopton. Both these works printed variants of hymns by Samuel Crossman and Richard Baxter. The Excellent Woman described by her true characters and their opposites, dedication signed T.D. to P.T.S. A London, 1692-5. This was a translation of El Honest Femme 1665 of Jacques du Bosc. Family Devotions for Sunday Evenings, 4 vols. London 1693-5, 3rd edition, revised, 4 vols. London 1703. A Familiar Guide to the Right and Profitable Receiving of the Lord's Supper. London 1695, 7th edition. London 1718. A French version was published. London 1699. The Honour Due to the Civil Magistrate, 1796. A High Church Polemic. The subtitle stated and urged in a sermon composed for the day of thanksgiving for the happy discovery of the late horrid and execrable conspiracy against His Majesty's sacred and person and government refers to the Jacobite assass. Observations concerning the present state of religion in the Romish Church, with some reflections upon them made in a journey through some provinces of Germany in the year 1698, as also an account of what seemed most remarkable in those countries. London 1699. A Vindication of the Christian Church in the Baptizing of Infants, drawn from the Holy Scriptures. London 1701. It was answered in 1705 in a Discourse of Baptism by P.B., a minister of the Church of England. The dissenting ministry in religion censured and condemned from the Holy Scriptures. London 1703. This attack on former colleagues drew a reply from Edmund Calamy in a postscript at the end of Part I of his Defense of Moderate Nonconformity, 1703 pp. 239-61. Calamy charged Dorrington with apostasy, referring to the Discourse against Extemporary Prayer, 1703 of Thomas Edwards. A Discourse on Singing in the Worship of God, London 1704. Family Instruction for the Church of England, offered in several practical discourses, London 1705. The Regulations of Play proposed and recommended, in a sermon on Prov. X. 23, London, 1706. Another edition appeared the same year. Devotions for several occasions, London, 1707. A discourse on F. Romans 6. 18, on praying by the Spirit in the use of common prayers, London, 1708. The Dissenters represented and condemned by themselves anon, London, 1710. The worship of God recommended in a sermon on Matt, Roman 4:10, preached before the University of Oxford, April 8, 1711. With an epistle in defense of the universities, Oxford, 1712. The true foundation of obedience and submission to His Majesty King George stated and confirmed, and the late happy revolution vindicated, London, 1714. The Plain Man's Preservative from the error of the Anabaptists, showing the professors of the established religion how they may defend the baptism they received in their infancy against them. A second edition, London, 1729. Dorrington translated from the Latin of Samuel Pufendorf the Divine Feudal Law, London, 1703, which is based on the late work E Special Divinum 1695, and a new edition under the variant title A View of the Principles of the Lutheran Churches, London, 1714, which had a second edition in the same year. The subtitle of the first work goes further than Pufendorf's original, and shows that Dorrington was in 1703 angling at the Hanoverian succession, in stressing unity between Anglicans and Lutherans. Some Jacobites took him to be proposing that the Lutheran Church of Hanover should join the Church of England.